Laura Price woke to the soft hum of the ship. She opened her eyes and listened. The hum was steady, a sound she knew by heart. Outside the small window, black space spread like a quiet ocean. Stars blinked far away. The human ship Horizon moved slowly, like a lone fish in a vast sea. Laura sat up. Her legs felt tired but steady. She looked around the cabin. The walls were plain. A small desk held a cup and a worn photo. In the photo, people stood on Earth. They smiled. She touched the picture and felt a small heat in her chest. She had left home to keep those smiles safe. The ship was small. Only 9 people lived on it. They were not soldiers of a great fleet. They were a mix of scientists, engineers, and a few who knew how to fight. They had 1 captain, 1 pilot, 1 engineer, 1 doctor, and the rest had other jobs. They did many things each day. They repaired, they learned, they waited. The galaxy did not think much of humans. For centuries, other races had called Earth a backwater world. They said humans were weak. They said humans would not last long in space. Empires built great armadas. They sent massive ships with glittering banners. They looked down on small human vessels and laughed. Laura did not care what others said. She focused on the work. She walked through the thin corridor and past the common room. The crew moved quietly. Each person looked at a screen or checked a tool. The pilot, James Hale, sat at a console. He pushed a small lever and the ship turned. James was calm. He trusted the ship. He trusted Laura. Brooks came from the engine room. A grease mark sat on his cheek. He wiped it with a sleeve. Loved machines. He had built many of the ship's parts in a dusty workshop back on Earth. He had taken simple things and made them work in space. He smiled when he saw Laura. "Morning," he said. His voice was low and honest. "Morning," Laura answered. She walked down to the control room. A map glowed in the center. The map showed the route through the stars. The path cut between the lines of a large armada. The armada belonged to the Empire. Their ships were wide as cities. They had chased small worlds and taken their trade. They did not like surprises. The Horizon was not meant for war. It had thin walls and a small shield. It had careful engines and a clever heart. The ship's shape came from many hands. People had worked on it for years, adding small things that together made a new kind of danger. It had a hidden purpose, a last idea built by people who had feared the worst. Laura looked at the map. The armada lay like a ring across the path. The ships moved with a slow confidence. They believed their size would crush any intruder. They had never seen what the Horizon could do. Daniel stood near the map. He was the weapons specialist. He had a strong jaw and hands that knew many controls. He studied the lines and told Laura what he saw. "They have a picket line here," he said. "Cruisers and a few carriers. They screen with drones. If we try to run, they will find us and force a fight." Laura felt the weight of that truth. She knew the crew's chance was small. They had one narrow trick that might let them pass or strike. The trick was not a bomb or a trap. It was a design that used what the ship had and what they did not expect. It was craft and timing. The ship hummed as it moved closer to the armada. The small windows let in distant light. The crew worked in silence. Dr. May checked the bio readings. She was gentle and quick. She looked at faces and saw the tired lines. She offered a coffee to, and he smiled back. They were a family in a tight space. Outside, the ships moved like a wave. Their armor showed bright lines. They radiated a quiet heat. From a distance, the horizon looked like a small glint. Around the bridge, the crew watched the map and the sensors. The ship's outer sensors were clever but not powerful. They could not match a full fleet. Laura thought of Earth. She saw fields and towers in her mind. She thought of the people who built the Horizon in secret. They had hidden their work from the world. They had not wanted to start a war. They had wanted a lifeline, a way to say no when huge powers demanded too much. The Horizon was small but smart. It had systems that could change the rules. As the ship drifted, a message came through. A scout sent a short transmission. The message sounded formal and cold. It told the Horizon to identify itself and stop. It used strong words. The Admiral thought he had a toy in his sights. He thought he could show power and move on. Laura smiled in a quiet way. She knew what the Admiral did not. She tapped her console and sent a calm reply. "This is Horizon. We are on a peaceful course. We mean no harm." The voice answered with a laugh that was more a whine. "You are out of place, human. Leave now or be taken." The bridge grew still. James tightened his grip on the steering. He could feel the ship's tremor in his hands. The small crew waited for orders. Laura's voice was steady. "We will not run. Keep course. Prepare shields on low. Power to the engines to hold our heading. Have your team ready." Moved like a man who knew the danger and the skill required. He checked the weapon bays and the strange devices hidden in the hull. The crew had fitted small plates and coils in secret. They had placed dampers and loops that could bend the small fields around the ship. Some devices looked odd and fragile, had welded them with hands that shook during the nights but worked with skill. The scout closed the distance. It came like a dark arrow. It broadcast more commands and threats. The scout's guns were tiny to an armada, but to a ship like the Horizon they could tear through thin hull plating. Laura thought of the plan. It was not a gamble. It was a careful step. The Horizon would not fight them ship to ship. That was impossible. The plan used small things: the ship's engines, the coils, a timing device, and the weakness in how the side thought. The humans had studied They had watched how the Empire used shields and how their weapons locked on. The weapons used lines of sight and long, steady power. They aimed and held. They did not expect sudden change. The Horizon moved into a narrow spot between the cruisers. The sensors picked up a faint pattern in the shields. There was a moment when their locks shifted, and the human crew saw it. It was a small breath in the flow of their systems. If timed right, a focused burst could slip through and land on a key node. Laura breathed slow. The crew set the ship. "On my mark," she said. She watched the sensor screen as if it were a small animal that had to be tamed. "Mark." James counted and the engines thrummed. The Horizon used a focused pulse. It was not a wide blast. It was a knife of energy pushed with careful shapes. The pulse slid through the gap in the shield like a thread through cloth. In the Scout, a circuit at the heart of its targeting array burned out. Alarms rang. The Scout staggered and drifted. Hundreds of small drones lost lock as the Scout's control node failed. The Admiral cursed. He had lost a key sensor. His ship slowed and moved awkwardly. The small human ship had not blown the Scout apart. It had made the fleet stumble, and in the space of that stumble, more things could happen. His eyes shone. He leaned forward and tapped keys. He guided more pulses into the confused network. The pulses were small and careful. They targeted the control links between the ships rather than the ships themselves. The network used waves of linked control that moved like a net. The Horizon found a seam. Across the bridge, the crew watched the network fail in small ways. Flags of error blinked on the map. Some cruisers slowed, then turned away like horses spooked by a sound. Others lost the rhythm of the fleet and floated out of line. The armada that had looked like a single wall now had holes. Laura felt a fierce light in her chest. She had not come into space to conquer. She had come to keep a small home safe and to show a gentle human strength. But now, with holes opening in the armada, she felt a duty to press the moment. The Admiral sent a single, loud command. He called for full power to the weapons, to burn the Horizon to ash. He did not understand that his network had been weakened. He thought raw power could fix a small problem. The fleet began to target the Horizon. Massive beams came alive across distance. The sky darkened with light where their weapons fired. The crew braced as the first wave hit. The Horizon shook. Alarms cried out and then fell silent as systems cut power to avoid worse damage. The small ship shuddered, but the hull held. Laura shouted orders in a calm way. "Divert power to the forward dampers. Hold the field. Keep the engines steady. Now fire the cascade on my mark." moved like a man who had done this many times in his head but never in real life. He hit a sequence of switches that spun small gyros and routed energy through coils. The ship felt warmer as systems rerouted their life into a small, hungry heart. The horizon did not look like a warship now. It looked like a workroom where a final tool had been. When the pulses came, they were not loud. They moved like a ripple on a pond. The first was a small gravity pulse that bent the tiny field of space around a cruiser. The cruiser felt a twist and fell away from its line. The next pulse slipped through a gap and hit the steering node of a carrier. The carrier lost orientation and drifted. The beams missed more often now. Their weapons could not find steady targets. The fleet's power was great, but it was not clever. The Horizon's moves were small and clever. The crew watched as a string of ships fell out of formation. On the bridge allowed himself a short laugh. It was thin, a sound of relief that broke through the tightness in the room. The others smiled, but their faces were still hard. They knew the price of a mistake. The Horizon had not destroyed a single large ship. It had not fired a single great cannon. It had used its small tools to make the Great Wall wobble. The Admiral clenched his jaw as he watched his armada stagger. He ordered more force, but the fleet's rhythm was broken. Without its tight network, it moved like a beast that had lost its head. The human crew felt a new weight. The path they traveled had opened for a brief time. They could run through and escape. They could turn back to tell Earth that the Armada had a crack, or they could press on and test how deep the weakness ran. Laura looked at the faces of her crew. Each one had a story. Each one had left something behind. They had all worked in small rooms and in quiet towns to make this ship. They had done the slow, patient work that built the devices now doing such strange things in space. She made a choice. "We go deeper," she said. Her voice was soft but firm. "We find their center and we see what they guard. We learn the price of their strength." The crew did not cheer. They only nodded. They moved to their stations again. The Horizon turned and slipped deeper into a field of broken light. Around them, the fleet bellowed and recovered, but their confidence had been hurt. As the small ship moved, a quiet filled the bridge. No one spoke. The stars outside were bright and cold. The path ahead was dangerous, but the crew had moved from fear to a steady focus. They had been laughed at. They had been called weak. In the hush of the bridge, they held a new truth. Size did not mean everything. Skill, care, and a steady hand might change the fate of many. Laura looked at the worn photo on her desk again. The smiles in it seemed to glow more than before. She thought of home and of the small hands that had soldered strange coils into a hull with hope and care. She felt a promise there. The Horizon sailed on. The Horizon moved deeper into space. The crew felt the tension grow with every passing minute. No one spoke loudly. No one laughed. The air on the ship felt tight, as if space itself pressed against the walls. But Laura Price kept her voice steady. She knew the crew watched her for strength. The ship's lights were dim. Walked along the corridor with a small tool light in his hand. He checked each coil and each thin plate that had been welded into the hull. He touched the metal with care, as if each piece were alive. He whispered small hopes under his breath. These small devices had saved them once. He hoped they would save them again. In the control room, stared at the sensor screen. Many dots moved in the distance. They were ships, recovering from the earlier disruption. The fleet looked shaken but not broken. It was still an Empire's armada. Knew they could not face it head-on. He wiped his forehead with a shaky hand. James sat in the pilot's seat with both hands on the controls. His fingers tapped without sound. He kept the Horizon steady. He moved with slow skill, making sure the ship's path looked like a simple drift. He tried not to trigger any early alarm. James had flown for years, but never passed an armada of this size. Laura stood behind him. Her eyes were sharp. She studied the stars, the map, and the sensor lines. She watched how the ships moved. They moved in a pattern she did not understand at first. But then she saw the rhythm. The fleet curved inward around a certain point. She pointed at the map. There, that must be important. They form a shield around it. Leaned closer. Looks like a command relay station, maybe a hub for their high-order signals. James turned slightly. If we hit that, we break their control lines, but it's deep inside their zone. Laura kept her voice soft. That may be our goal. The crew looked at one another. There was fear in their eyes, but also a spark of purpose. They had already done the impossible once. They had survived the first contact with the Armada. Now the question was not if they could fight the Empire, but how far they could go before they were stopped. Dr. May walked into the room. She held a small medical scanner. "You all need rest," she said quietly. "Your heart rates are too high." Smiled at her with tired eyes. "We'll rest after we survive this." Dr. May sighed, but she did not argue. She stayed near the door, watching the crew with silent worry. The horizon drifted closer to the shielded area. The ship's engine stayed on low power, adjusted the energy flow to make the ship look weak and harmless. They needed to blend in, not shine. Suddenly the sensors picked up a new signature, leaned forward. "A patrol, 2 cruisers. They're coming straight toward us." The bridge froze. James held the controls tightly. "They already saw us." "No," said, "but they will. We need to decide fast." Laura felt the pressure. Her mind worked quickly but calmly. She turned to, "Can we lower our signal even more?" Shook his head. "Not without shutting down life support. The ship would look like a dead rock, but we'd run out of air in minutes." Looked at the map again. 2 cruisers. If they scan us, they'll know we're human. The crew waited for Laura's command. She closed her eyes for one moment. When she opened them, she had the answer. "We pretend to be damaged, make the ship drift, kill the engines for 30 seconds and make us look like we're barely alive. When they try to mark us for towing, we pulse their sensors again. Not enough to destroy them, just enough to confuse them and hide us. Then we slip through the shadow of their hulls." James blinked. "Through their hull shadows, that's close." "Yes," Laura said, "very close." Scratched his head. "That will take perfect timing." "I trust you," Laura said simply. The crew moved. May held onto a rail as the ship's hum dimmed, shut down the main engines. The lights flickered. The horizon drifted like a dying leaf in a cold wind. The cruisers approached. They were huge. Their hulls glowed with pale blue veins. Their engines burned like bright stars. They cast long shadows in space, dark trails that moved slowly. Whispered, "They're scanning." The sound of the scanner echoed through the horizon as a deep pulse. Laura felt it in her bones. The alien signal washed over the ship, reading every inch. James held his breath. May closed her eyes. Waited for Laura's mark. The scanner grew stronger. Laura raised her hand. "Now." Slammed the switch. A tight pulse burst out from the horizon. Not a loud blast, just a thin, sharp ripple. It touched the cruiser's sensors and twisted the readings. The cruiser's scanning devices filled with static. The ship slowed. "Read the data. They can't identify us. Their readout says we're debris." He almost laughed. But there was no time. James moved the ship carefully, going into the shadow now. The horizon slipped under the tall hull of the first cruiser. The ship felt tiny. The cruiser looked like a floating city above them. The lights on its belly glowed like small suns. The crew kept quiet. The ship slid through the darkness under the cruiser. The shadow protected them from most sensors. They passed under the second cruiser as well, holding their breath each second. James whispered, "We're through." The bridge exhaled at once. Laura nodded. "Engines on low, continue path." The horizon moved again, slow but steady. The shielded area grew closer. The closer they got, the more strange signals hit the sensors. The hub pulsed with a strange energy field. It looked like a cluster of rings spinning around a central tower. Lights spun in patterns. It felt like a heartbeat. Stared at it. This is no simple relay. It's their main command core for this region. If we take down that tower, the Armada will lose control. Laura nodded. That is why we're here. The crew gathered for a small meeting in the common room. Laura stood at the front. She looked at every face. We came here for knowledge and safety, she said. But now we have a chance to weaken the empire that threatens many worlds. If we strike the command core, we don't just save ourselves. We change the battlefield for others, but it will be dangerous. We must get close, too close. Raised his hand. How do we strike it? The tower looks strong. Explained. We can't fire a big shot. They'll detect it and destroy us. But we can use a series of small pulses. If we hit the right nodes at the right time, we create a cascade. The tower's energy will fold in on itself. It will shut down without blowing up. James asked, but how do we get close enough to do that? Laura pointed to the map. We hide inside the blind zone. Every structure has one. They believe no one would dare fly that close, so they watch the space around it, not under it. If we slip into that spot, we can reach the nodes. The crew exchanged nervous looks, but then spoke up. We can do it. The horizon was made for moves like this. Dr. May added softly, and we have each other. The decision was made. The horizon moved toward the blind zone. The tower grew enormous as they approached. Its rings spun faster. Its light pulsed with deep power. The ship shook as strange waves moved through space. James steadied the controls. I've never flown this close to an alien structure. You're doing well, Laura said. Analyze the nodes. There, and that one. We must hit these three in quick order. Prepare the coils. I'll give as much focus as I can, but each pulse will heat the plates. We can't fire too many. Dr. May stood ready with first aid supplies for burns and shocks. She knew the stress would hit everyone. The horizon slipped under the tower. The ship trembled. The structure's gravity waves touched the hull. Warning lights flashed. Hold it steady, Laura said. James gritted his teeth, trying. Shouted, first node in range. Laura raised her hand. Fire. Triggered the pulse. A small burst shot upward. It hit the first node. The node flickered. Blue sparks danced along the ring. Second node in 3 seconds, said. James inched the ship forward. The horizon scraped close to the spinning structure. A loud metal groan filled the ship. Fire, Laura commanded. Hit the next pulse. The second node flickered. The tower shook. Third node yelled. The tower began to glow brightly. It sensed interference. The rings spun faster. The horizon shook violently. Hold steady, Laura ordered. James strained. If I go any closer, the hull may tear. Laura looked at. We need that last node. His voice was steady. If we miss it, the tower will recover. All of this will mean nothing. Grab the final control. His hands trembled. Laura looked at him. Now. He fired. The last pulse hit the node. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the tower went dark. All the rings slowed. The lights died out. The energy field collapsed inward like a sigh. Stared at the screen. We did it. The command core is offline. James leaned back in his seat. The fleet will be blind. Slumped to the floor with relief. But the silence did not last. New signals appeared on the sensors. Laura's face grew tense. They know someone hit the core. They're coming here. Read the data. Not a patrol, not a few cruisers, a full strike group. We woke the Empire. James gripped the controls. Can we run? Laura answered quietly. We must, but this time they will not underestimate us. The horizon turned away from the tower. Engines roared to life. Lights flickered. The crew braced themselves. The strike group closed in. And Part 2 ended with the horizon diving into a storm of enemy fire. The horizon pushed through the dark space as the strike group closed in. Lights flashed across the screens. and the sound of warning alarms filled the bridge. The crew knew that this time the Empire would not play games. The ships moved fast and with purpose. Their shapes grew larger with each passing second. Laura stood at the center of the bridge. Her face was calm even as the ship shook. She watched the sensors and the movement of the ships. She knew what was coming. The strike group wanted revenge for the fallen command corps. They would not stop until the horizon was destroyed. James kept his hands tight on the controls. His eyes were sharp as he steered the ship through waves of energy fire. Each blast lit the dark space around them. He pushed the ship hard, turning sharply and weaving through the chaos. "They're firing to cut off our escape path," said, looking at the patterns of enemy fire. Laura nodded. "We need to move faster. James, take us left into the dark belt." She pointed at a cluster of debris and old ship remains. "We lose speed there, but their sensors will have trouble tracking us." James did not hesitate. He turned the horizon toward the dense field of metal and rock. The ship passed into the shadows of broken hulls, long-dead engines, and shattered plates that floated silently. Came running into the bridge. He held a small power meter in his hand. "The coils are heating again. We can't use more than 2 short pulses or the whole system might shut down." Frowned. "We need those pulses if we want to break their targeting systems again." "I know," said softly, "but if the coils melt, we lose everything. The hull will be exposed and we'll be easy prey." Laura listened, thinking. She looked at the map, the fleet movements, and the debris belt. She pressed her lips together. "We use only 1 pulse. 1, we must aim it perfectly." Stared at her. "1 shot, that will only buy us a little time." "It will be enough," she said quietly. The horizon moved deeper into the debris field. The ship slowed slightly as James pulled up the engines to avoid collision. Large pieces of destroyed ships drifted past them. Some looked ancient. Others looked burned in recent battles. The remains of wars long forgotten floated around them like ghosts. Dr. May entered the bridge. She held a small scanner. "The stress levels are rising too fast. You all need to breathe." Laura gave her a small smile. "We'll breathe when we're safe. For now, stay with us." May nodded and stayed near the wall, watching the crew closely. The strike group approached the edge of the debris belt. Their ships hesitated. The field was thick and dangerous. Their sensors flickered slightly, but they did not stop. The ships spread out, forming a wide pattern to trap the horizon. "Watch them, they're learning. They won't fall for simple tricks again." Laura nodded. "Then we use something more precise. Give me the exact position of their lead destroyer." Typed quickly. "Got it. It's marking us for a lock." Laura lifted her hand. "Ready the pulse. This is our 1 chance." Swallowed hard. "Ready, but the coils are hot. If I fire wrong, they will crack." "You won't fire wrong," Laura said. James held the ship steady. The destroyer's signal grew stronger. "Locking on," whispered. The bridge grew silent. Everyone watched the glowing point on the screen. Laura lowered her hand. "Fire." Hit the switch. A single, sharp pulse burst from the horizon. It was small, focused, and shaped with great care. The pulse found the exact weak point in the destroyer's sensor matrix. The ship's lights flickered. The targeting beam fell apart. Shouted, "We broke their lock. They're blind for a moment." James pushed the ship forward, taking us through the gap now. The horizon surged deeper into the debris belt. The broken destroyer drifted, confusing the strike group's formation. The ships moved around it, trying to regain control. Laura watched the map. "They will recover soon. We must use the time. James, aim for the lower drift current in the belt. It will pull us toward the next sector." James nodded and steered the ship into a narrow path between 2 giant slabs of metal. The horizon slid through, almost touching the edges. The ship shook, warnings flashed. "We're too close," warned. "Hold steady," Laura said. James guided the ship with slow breath and steady hands. The debris belt around them looked like a dark tunnel. Pieces floated in strange ways as the drift current pushed them. The horizon followed the current, moving deeper. The crew held onto their seats as the ship trembled. But then they slipped through. The ship came out of the narrow path into a wider space. The area was calmer. Far behind them, the strike group fired blindly into the wrong direction, confused by the earlier pulse. James let out a long breath. We made it. He leaned back as the tension left his shoulders. Smiled for the first time in a long while. They lost us. Sagged in relief. Good, because the coils are done. They need hours to cool. Dr. May checked the readings of the crew. You all look like you haven't slept in days. Laura smiled. Feels like that. But she did not relax. Instead, she looked at the map again. Noticed you're thinking of something. What is it? Laura pointed at a distant point on the star map. This. Their central command hub for the whole region, not just the part we hit. They must have a main station deeper in their territory. James frowned. Are we going there? Laura nodded. Yes. If we strike that, the Armada will fall into total confusion. Their fleets won't just slow or lose locks, they will collapse. Scratched his head, but the horizon can't take much more. Laura looked at each crew member. I know, but we came this far for a reason. We didn't come to weaken one corner of their power. We came to end the threat to our world and others. If we turn back now, we risk them rebuilding stronger. The room fell silent. Then spoke, I'm in. James nodded, me too. Shrugged, then smiled. I'll fix whatever breaks. Dr. May looked worried but strong. I will stay by your side. Laura lifted her chin. Then we move forward. The horizon left the debris belt and entered open space again. The crew made repairs, replaced cracked plates and rewired coils, checked weapons. James recalibrated the engine controls. Dr. May gave everyone water and kept their spirits up. Hours later, the ship approached the central region of space. The sight was overwhelming. Huge ships floated in organized patterns. Giant structures glowed with bright colors. The central hub looked like a giant flower made of metal, spinning slowly. Its petals were long arms that stretched into space. Each arm pulsed with white energy. Stared, that is their main command, the heart of their empire. Laura nodded, and we will strike it. The horizon moved closer. Alarms chimed softly as enemy signals grew stronger. They don't see us yet, said. Their sensors are too focused on outer space, not inside. James pulled the ship into a lower path under one of the giant arms. This place is like a city in space. The crew watched as the giant pedals rotated. The structure hummed with power. Lights flowed along its surface like water. Laura stepped forward. This is it. We break this and the empire falls. Looked nervous, but how do we strike something so big? Answered, we hit the energy roots under the pedals. Each pedal runs on a central line. Break the line, break the control. James asked, and how do we reach the roots? Laura answered softly, we fly under them. The horizon slipped under the spinning structure. The gravity waves grew stronger. The ship shook. Steady, Laura said. James held the controls with all his strength. Found the first energy root. There. Prepared a small pulse. He was careful now. The coils were weak. Fire, Laura said. A soft pulse hit the first root. It flickered. Next one, said. James shifted the ship. A deep alarm echoed from the hub. Lights turned red. Laura lifted her hand. Fire again. Fired. The second root cracked. Energy burst out. The hub began to shake. One more, said. The horizon moved under the final root. Alarms blared. They see us now, James shouted. Laura's voice cut through the noise. Now. He fired the last pulse. The final root broke. The hub's lights went out. The entire structure went dark. Across the region, ships froze. Their empire had gone blind. Laura whispered, "We did it." The horizon drifted away from the darkened command hub. The giant structure no longer glowed with power. No signals came from it. No orders left its silent core. All around, ships floated without direction. They spun slowly, lights flickering weakly. The once mighty armada looked like a sleeping beast that had lost its heartbeat. Laura stood motionless on the bridge. She watched the silent chaos around them. The weight of what they had done pressed on her shoulders. Her crew stood behind her, tired but proud. They had survived the impossible. They had broken the central command of an empire. James controlled the ship with steady hands. He pulled the horizon away from the fatting energy lines of the hub. His face was pale. He had flown through tight passages, debris, and the spinning arms of alien machines. Now he could hardly feel his own fingers. Stared at the sensor screen. All ships in this region are disconnected. Their systems are failing one by one. They can't fight. They can't chase. They can't even talk to each other. Leaned against the wall. His hands were black with grease and his clothes were dirty from hours of repairs. "The coils won't take another pulse," he said. "They're melted into the frame now. We used everything they had." Dr. May checked the crew one by one. She placed hands on their shoulders, gave water, and kept them steady. "All of you are exhausted," she said. "You need rest." Laura nodded. "We will rest soon, but not yet. We need to get clear of this place. The Empire will recover eventually. Maybe hours, maybe days. We must leave before then." James asked, "Where do we go? The way back is full of their ships. Even if they're blind now, some systems might reboot. If they regain control while we're there, we'll be trapped." Laura stepped closer to the map. She studied the lines, the paths, the drift currents. "We don't go back the same way. We take the star lane to the far side. The path is longer but quieter. They rarely patrol that area. They believe it is too remote." Zoomed in on the map. "The lane is narrow. One wrong turn and we fall into a gravity well." Laura's eyes were firm. "James can fly it." James let out a slow breath. "I'll try." Looked worried. "Engines are weak. The ship's frame is hot. If we push too hard, we risk a break." Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we will fly slow. We do not rush. We survive." The horizon moved away from the center of the Empire. The stars ahead were dim and distant. The crew could feel the quiet of space. It felt deeper than before. A strange calm settled over them. They had faced danger at every turn. Now they sailed through silence. Time passed. Hours moved slowly. No one spoke much. James guided the ship along the long star lane. The lane curved like a thin silver thread through space. It was narrow but steady. The horizon followed the drift current. Monitored the sensors. No ships behind us. No signals, nothing. Sat on the floor near the engine panel. He held tools in his hands but did not move them. His eyelids were heavy. "I could sleep for days," he whispered. Dr. May smiled softly. "You will once we are safe." Laura watched her crew. She felt pride in their strength. They were not soldiers of a powerful fleet. They were simple people, each with their own skills. Together, they had done something the galaxy would talk about for generations. After a long silence, James said, "I think we're reaching the middle of the lane. The worst part is next. The gravity pull grows strong here." Laura leaned forward. "We will get through it. Guide us slowly. I trust you." James nodded and adjusted the controls. He steered the ship as the lane began to twist. The horizon shook. Lights flickered. A deep vibration hummed through the hull. "Check the engine readings. We're entering the pull. Engines are holding, but only just." Tightened his seat belt. "This part might be rough." The horizon dipped as the gravity pulled on it. The ship slid sideways, then twisted back. James gripped the controls with all his strength. Laura stayed calm. "Steady, James, slow corrections. Don't fight the pull too hard." James nodded. He eased the ship through the twisting path. Sweat dripped down his forehead. The ship creaked under the pressure. Dr. May held onto a rail. "We'll be fine, just stay steady." For long minutes the ship groaned and shook. The lane twisted like a snake through space. The gravity waves tugged at the ship in every direction. The crew braced themselves. Then suddenly, the shaking stopped. The horizon drifted out of the strong pull into calm space again. James let out a breath. "We made it through the worst part, the rest is easy." Laughed weakly. "Good, because the engines are giving up. I need to cool them before they melt." Laura nodded. "Do what you must, we will drift for now." As the ship drifted, the crew finally rested. James closed his eyes for a moment, leaned back in his chair, sat on the floor against the wall and fell asleep instantly. Dr. May placed blankets over anyone she could. Laura stood still, watching the stars. She did not allow herself to rest yet. She needed to be awake. She needed to guide her crew home. Hours passed quietly. A soft beeping sound broke the silence. Opened his eyes and checked the sensors. "We're nearing the far edge of their territory," he said. "Once we cross it, we'll be safe." James returned to the controls. "Engines are cool enough to run again. We can move." Rubbed his eyes. "I'll watch the heat levels, keep the power low." Laura smiled. "We are close, let's bring this ship home." The horizon powered forward again. The stars ahead began to brighten. The long path opened into a wide field of calm space. The ship crossed the last border of the Empire. A soft alert beeped. Dr. May looked at the screen. "We're out, we're clear." James looked back at the others. "We did it, we're safe." Slumped into his chair. "I can't believe it, we're actually out." Stared at the empty space behind them. "The armada we faced, it's broken now. Maybe for years, maybe forever." Laura remained quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke softly. "No one will laugh at a human ship again." The crew looked at her. She continued, "We showed them that strength is not about size or power. It is about courage, skill, and heart. The horizon was small, but we stood against an empire, and we did not fall." James smiled. "The galaxy will remember this day." Added, "They'll tell stories about the horizon and about us." Dr. May placed a hand on Laura's arm. "What now? Do we return home?" Laura looked at the star map. A long path led back to Earth. The thought of home filled her chest with warmth, but she also knew that the galaxy had changed. Their act had shaken powerful empires. There would be questions, fear, and maybe more conflict. But first, they needed to see the sky of their own world again. Laura nodded. "Yes, we return to Earth. Our people need to know what we saw and what we did. The galaxy is changing. Humanity must be ready." James straightened the ship's course, setting path for home. Smiled, "Earth will be proud." Leaned back with a tired grin. "I can't wait to sleep in my own bed." Dr. May laughed softly. "You and everyone else." The horizon turned toward the stars of home. Its engines glowed gently as the ship began its long journey. The crew sat together on the bridge, silent but connected. They shared a bond formed in danger, fear, and hope. As the ship moved, Laura looked at the small picture on her desk again, the people smiling back at her. She touched it lightly. "We're coming home," she whispered. The horizon sailed through the quiet of space, leaving behind the remains of an empire that had once laughed at a small human ship. Now the galaxy would never laugh again. The journey home began, and the stars opened before them like a promise.